Hello, noble ones, and welcome to Metatron's Academy. So, recently, meaning 3 weeks ago, the channel Lang Focus posted this video, Is Modern Hebrew Totally Different from Biblical Hebrew? Question mark. Well, here's the thing. I find Hebrew very interesting. I did study 1 year of Biblical Hebrew at university as a minor. Wasn't anything particularly, in fact, like more of a like 4 credit. So it's not like I'm an expert or anything, but I can answer this question. Because no, it's not totally different from Biblical Hebrew. With that being said, I mean, it is different, though, up to a certain extent, particularly when it comes to some vocabulary usage, pronunciation, in fact, syntax, word order. But of course, he's going to explain all of this. So without further ado, let's jump right into it.
As you may already know, modern Hebrew is the result of a language revival because Hebrew had ceased to be spoken as a native language of daily life for around 1600 years. So,
yes, that's correct, of course. As a liturgical language, though, it never stopped being used. That's an important aspect that I think we should always mention whenever we say, oh, it's resurrected the language as if it was completely dead. As a liturgical ceremonial language, it was still used.
Hebrew linguists created a new standardized form of the language that was expanded for modern life, and now millions of people speak it as a native language.
Yeah.
It sounds like it was successfully revived, right? But I see a lot of comments online these days saying that modern Hebrew is completely different from ancient biblical
They're wrong.
Hebrew. Is that true? No, it's not totally different, but it's not exactly the same as biblical Hebrew either. It wasn't based only on biblical Hebrew. It was based on the entire extensive body of literary Hebrew and Jewish traditions of liturgical Hebrew that were continuously used throughout the centuries.
Man, I love his level of research. I would say, yeah, that's great.
Up until the time modern Hebrew was created. Considering how much time has passed, modern Hebrew really isn't that different from biblical Hebrew. And of course, that's partly because it was based on historical literary forms of the language. The goal of modern Hebrew was to...
See, when he says historical literary versions of the language, it's very interesting because I wonder at this point how different it is from the situation that we have in the difference between modern Italian and, for instance, the Italian used by Dante Alighieri in the La Divina Commedia. Because at the end of the day, yeah, it's medieval Italian, and it is very different. I wouldn't speak like that, but I do understand most of it, apart from some words which do require a footnote, because they have either, they're like false friends, they sound like something else in modern Italian, but they don't actually mean it, or it's a word that I just don't know what it means unless I study it. But the majority of it, it's just that it sounds archaic, but I could totally understand it. So I wonder how close to that is. If you're a native Hebrew speaker, do let me know.
Revive Hebrew as a native spoken language for a new Jewish society in the Holy Land, the goal of Zionism. So modern Hebrew was sort of compiled by adopting features from the various eras and styles of literary Hebrew, while its vocabulary was greatly expanded. So today we're going to compare biblical Hebrew and modern Hebrew and see just how similar and how different they are.
Excellent.
Originally, Hebrew was written in a different script, the Paleo-Hebrew script, the version of the Canaanite script used by the Israelites, and it was almost identical to the Phoenician script. The early books of the Bible, like Genesis and Exodus, among others, were originally written in that Paleo-Hebrew script that's no longer used. But after the exile to...
Of course, Genesis in America, but in Europe, it's the Book of Mega Drive. If you are my age, you laughed. If you are my age, you laughed.
Babylon, Hebrew adopted the Aramaic square script, which the later books of the Bible were written in. And that script has been used to write Hebrew ever since, including modern Hebrew. If you compare modern Hebrew text to Paleo-Hebrew text, obviously it looks nothing like it. But if you look at pretty much any Hebrew text written after the 5th century BCE, the script is the same. The Dead Sea Scrolls, for example, are written in the same script as modern Hebrew, except for a few fragments that are written in Paleo-Hebrew. Syntax. The general syntax of biblical Hebrew was a little bit different from modern Hebrew.
Yeah, you put the verb at the beginning.
And its literary style was quite different. For the moment, I'm going to pronounce the biblical Hebrew examples using modern Hebrew pronunciation, so I can focus on one thing at a time, and I'll come back to the pronunciation in a couple of minutes. Biblical Hebrew tended to be VSO, verb subject object, while modern Hebrew is normally SVO, subject verb object. Take this part of the opening verse of Genesis.
Bara Elohim et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. It's missing the Bereshit, but yeah, Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. And from Genesis 1:1, yeah. How does it go then afterwards? Let me see if I can still say it. Bereshit bara Elohim et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz ve'ha'aretz hayeta tohu vavohu vayomer al penei techom ve'ruach Elohim merachefet al penei chamayim vayomer Elohim yehi or Vayehi or. I still remember it. Cool stuff. All right, let's see his explanation. Sorry for the digression.
Bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et object. Take this part of the opening verse of Genesis. Bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. God created the heavens and the earth. Okay. Word for word, it's created, God, direct object marker, the heavens, and direct object marker, the earth.
When it comes to earth, the word is eretz. In this case, though, there is a specific rule. I'm not going to go into the details, but it's this ha that changes the pronunciation. Haaretz. So haaretz, but on its own, I spoke Italian, but on its own, eretz. And it's so interesting. It basically is create, because of course bara is the verb that we traditionally translate as create. There is some debate on that, depending on which location, but that's the word. And then of course Elohim, which is a plural, is what we translate as God. For anyone who says, it's technically not a plural, it is technically a plural. I will defend this to death.
In everyday modern Hebrew, the word order would probably be Elohim bara et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, with God first and created second. Yeah. Of course, biblical sentences are almost never translated into modern Hebrew, though. People read them as they are.
Same with medieval Italian.
Another example from Genesis 2:24. Ya'azav ish et aviv ve'et imo. This means a man shall leave his father and his mother. Word for word, it's shall leave, man, direct object marker, his father, and direct object marker, his mother. The verb comes first and the subject comes second. In everyday modern Hebrew, the word order would be ish ya'azov et aviv ve'et imo, again with the subject first and the verb second. Also note that biblical Hebrew had a slightly different verb form here, ya'azav, with an a vowel rather than an o vowel, because it's a special form used before a pause.
Biblical Hebrew pausal form.
Modern Hebrew doesn't have this, so it uses the usual form ya'azov. And that's an example of my next point. While these biblical sentences are perfectly understandable to modern Hebrew speakers, there are other things about them, aside from basic word order, that stand out as very literary or formal to modern Hebrew speakers.
Sounds almost exactly like the difference between medieval Italian and modern Italian. I'm going to see a lot of connections between the two. Love the video so far.
We'll look at those things in just a minute, but first I want to give a quick shout out to my LangFocus supporters on Patreon and channel members right here on YouTube. Splendid. By joining my Patreon or becoming a channel member here on YouTube, you can gain access to exclusive videos like this one about Yiddish loanwords in modern Hebrew, this one on Sabir, the Mediterranean lingua franca, and more. So you get to see special members videos while also supporting this channel so I can keep it going for everyone. Head over to my Patreon or click the join button on my YouTube channel page to become one of the Lang folk. Now let's get back to those things that modern Hebrew speakers might find highly literary or formal. Like in this sentence, haaretz refers to the earth or land in general, the terrestrial sphere. But in modern Hebrew, eretz generally refers to a specific land or country. And haaretz, meaning the land, is widely used to refer to Eretz Israel, the land of Israel. Noladati ba'aretz means I was born in Eretz Israel, the land of Israel.
Isn't it interesting that modern Hebrew uses the same uvula type of R as the French, really? It's very similar. Maybe I won't say exactly the same, but it's very similar to the French R. And I don't think that's, as far as I understand, the R was not pronounced the way they do now in biblical times. Now, of course, it's not easy to reconstruct because it's not like we've got a recording, but there are ways in which these things can be rebuilt. That's what we did with the reconstructed pronunciation of classical Latin. And so we do have a very strong idea on how it was pronounced. Linguists do rather than me. For what I remember, it's been many years, guys. It's been many years since university. Was it rolled? Was it a rolled R like in Italian or Spanish, or was it different? A different type of rolling. I don't remember, honestly. Let's see.
And in this sentence, aviv and imo sound very formal or literary in modern Hebrew. In daily conversation, the words for father and mother are abba and ima, which were borrowed from Aramaic, and don't appear in the Hebrew Bible, but do appear in the Mishnah. So they were ancient borrowings. Also, rather than using possessive pronoun suffixes like this, in modern Hebrew it's more common to use the preposition shel with a suffixed pronoun, abba shelo, ima shelo. Again, shel is something that doesn't appear in most of the Bible, but it's widely used in the Mishnah. Except in a couple of later parts of the Bible, the biblical equivalent of shel was ashel, literally which is to, or which is for.
Man, Hebrew is such a beautiful language.
So there were phrases like hakesef asherli, my money. In modern Hebrew it's hakesef sheli, and that started with Mishnaic Hebrew. Asher,
they both sound really nice.
Contracted to shel. which further contracted to shel, which gradually replaced asher by the time of the Mishnah, and asher by itself, meaning which or that, was replaced by she. Shel is probably one of the most common and useful words in modern Hebrew, a possessive preposition which on its own you can translate as of. Maybe you're starting to see that modern Hebrew has a lot of influence from Mishnaic Hebrew. Also, while the word ish does mean...
So let me see, does it go into the pronunciation? Because yes, I want to check that one out now.
few minutes. Pronunciation.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, so far I've been using modern Hebrew pronunciation, or simplified Sephardic pronunciation as it's sometimes called. But modern Hebrew pronunciation is a little different from biblical Hebrew pronunciation. We don't know exactly how Hebrew was pronounced in the time of the Bible. We only have reconstructions.
Of course.
The current pronunciation markings written in all Hebrew Bibles were created between around 750 and 950 CE by the Masoretes.
Masoretes. Okay, I didn't know. Masoretti in Italian. So I didn't know how you rendered that in English. Masoretes. Did he say that? Yeah.
Scholars based in Tiberias on the Sea of Galilee.
They're the ones who put the vowels because, of course, it's a Semitic language. So just like Egyptian, for instance, ancient Egyptian, they only wrote the consonants, so it's a reconstruction anyways. Did they get all the vowel placement right? We will never know.
Their pronunciation system doesn't exactly match reconstructions of biblical Hebrew, but it doesn't seem that different either, especially from late biblical Hebrew. Other pronunciation styles developed in various communities of the Jewish diaspora: Ashkenazi pronunciation, Sephardic, Yemenite, and others. They read the same Tiberian text, but pronounced some sounds differently. The pronunciation of modern Hebrew was based on the Sephardic style, but during the revival it was also influenced by the other pronunciation traditions of its new speakers. Basically, two modern Hebrew accents emerged. An accent influenced by Ashkenazi Jews who spoke Yiddish and Slavic languages, and an accent influenced by Mizrahi Jews who spoke Arabic dialects. The first accent is now the dominant one. So let's get back to some of the biblical Hebrew sentences I read before, and I'll do my best to read them in both modern Hebrew
That's going to be very interesting.
pronunciation and in Tiberian pronunciation, even though I'm not an expert. Ya'azav ish et aviv et imo. Ya'azov ish es aviv es imo.
I'm noticing that the TH is interdental, fricative, so it goes with the th of think. So interesting. So in modern Hebrew, they don't. They fully pronounce the T as you would expect, I guess, et. In biblical Hebrew, they had an interdental? Wow, I had no idea. I'll give you an equivalent in Italian, though. It's going to blow your mind if you didn't know this.
First, this word had a sound in biblical Hebrew that isn't used in the dominant modern Hebrew accent, ein. In modern Hebrew, it's a glottal stop or silent. It is used in the Mizrahi accent, though, the accent used by many Jewish immigrants from Arab countries. More in the past than now. So in the Tiberian accent of biblical Hebrew, it's Ya'azov, and in the Mizrahi accent, it's Ya'azav, and in the dominant accent, it's Ya'azav. Also notice that Aleph, which represents a glottal stop, is often silent in modern Hebrew, but clearly pronounced in biblical Hebrew. Ya'azavish, Ya'azov ish, et imo, et imo. Also, this direct object marker is pronounced et in modern Hebrew, but es in biblical Hebrew. That's because in biblical Hebrew, the consonant tav had two allophones, t and th, while in modern Hebrew, it's always t. Also, in modern Hebrew...
Okay, so I want to tell you about that thing. See, if you don't know that, but that sound, the th sound of think, is non-existent in Italian, and it is also mostly just not present in the majority of regional languages. Dialects, if you will. I prefer regional languages. Exception being in Tuscany. So in Tuscany, in fact, even in Florentine speech, you will hear sometimes people, not in standard Italian, even though it's based on the Florentine version with some additions from other varieties. If you have, when you hear people, but if someone has a strong Florentine accent, for instance, they will do that. So like instead of andato, they will say andato, andato. So they have the th. And I always thought it was fascinating. The first time I heard, I'm going to be honest, first time I heard someone from Florence speak like that, I was 18. I thought it was joking. I thought it was joking. Because I had never heard it before. Anyways. Being from the island, I mean.
The distinction between long and short vowels is mostly gone, but in biblical Hebrew, at least in the Tiberian system, vowel length, while not phonemic, was important to pronounce. So here we have aviv with a long A vowel and a
Yeah.
long E vowel.
I wonder if the long vowels... Oh, he said they're not phonemic. He just said it. I don't know why my mind just replayed it. Not phonemic. So there is distinction between long and short, but they don't change the meaning. They don't have a semantic impact into the rest of the sentence as they would in classical Latin. Interesting.
But in modern Hebrew, it would be aviv. Here we have imo. In modern Hebrew, it would be imo. Also, the doubling of letters like this is not done in modern Hebrew. So it's not imo, it's just imo. You might also notice that some vowels are a little different. This vowel, called a comet, is pronounced a in biblical Hebrew, at least in Tiberian pronunciation, while it's a in modern Hebrew. That's
And as I say, the vowels have been added. So they write them now, all these dots here, and this little T-looking symbol. These are vowels. What's interesting is they were not there in the original biblical text because, again, that's a characteristic of Semitic languages. They just write the consonants, and that makes it a little bit of a puzzle, really, to decipher. Because I mean, if you write a word like HS, it could be house, it could be his, it could be, and so of course the context will help a lot of times, but there will be situations where switching vowel may still give you two or three words that could still work in that specific context. In fact, sometimes you don't even need to change vowel in the Bible to get two words like that, but with different meaning. You just need to change type of a. So there's that.
why you heard Yazov versus Yazav. Another sentence. Bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz.
Yeah.
Bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz.
He is sort of, he is pronouncing the R differently, but not in a way that I thought. Let's see if he goes deeper into that.
So again, you can hear the difference in the comet's vowel, bara versus bara. And the resh sound, the R sound, is a little different. In Tiberian Hebrew, it was generally pronounced like a voiced velar trill, r, and sometimes like the alveolar trill you hear in Spanish, which I can't say.
Man, I wish he added a recording because I'm not sure what he means in Spanish. So there are variations anyways, that's interesting.
But it's also pharyngealized like an emphatic consonant. In modern Hebrew, it's a voiced velar fricative or approximate rather than a trill. Ra, bara, bara. In Elohim, you can hear the longer vowel in im in biblical Hebrew. Elohim, Elohim, or Elohim. And again, we see et versus eth. In the next word, the biblical word has a doubled consonant after the definite article ha. Hashamayim versus modern Hebrew, hashamayim. And there's the comets again, with its more closed a vowel. And before that, there's the consonant he in the definite article. Native speakers of modern Hebrew these days seem to make the he sound silent or very subtle in everyday speech. So hashamayim ends up being like hashamayim.
You know, I can sympathize with that because in Italian we've got the H and it's just a decoration, we never pronounce it. Interestingly enough, that began with Latin because in classical Latin the H is pronounced. You don't have to overdo it, but it is aspirated. However, if you look at ecclesiastical Latin pronunciation, which is the Italianate version, then a lot more modern relatively, because in the Middle Ages was already a thing, but that one doesn't have the pronunciation of the H. So, when did it drop? Most likely during the Empire. In fact, relatively early, it started being dropped, the pronunciation of the H, in rural areas. So if you were a very educated speaker from the city, yeah, you would pronounce your H's basically. But if not, you would drop them. And so eventually the dropped version was the one that became the norm over a few centuries. If you think about it, it's kind of happening in English too. There are people that drop their H's all the time. And in fact, in some vernacular versions, like in British English, you do say herb, but that H is already gone in American English, where most speakers would pronounce it herb. So it happens. H's disappear.
And et hashamayim ends up sounding like tashamayim. In the final word, aretz, aretz, we encounter the voiced uvular trill again in biblical Hebrew, and the fricative in modern Hebrew. And the final consonant, tzadi, is pronounced in biblical Hebrew like an emphatic S, meaning that it's pharyngealized. So, in modern Hebrew, it's pronounced ts. I find it hard to say the emphatic S at the end of a word, but I think it's something like this. Aretz, aretz. Okay, so one more time. Bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Okay, as an overall impression, how different would you say that is?
I mean, it is different to me, but let me see what he says, and then I'll tell you what I think when it comes to the... Not the Gamish, probably he's better than that. I mean, I appreciate him, so I want to give him precedence.
To me, the difference sounds like an immigrant to Canada who speaks English with a very noticeable accent, but I can understand what they say.
Yeah, I would. No, I don't. I mean, I don't know. You tell me if you're a native speaker of Hebrew and if you agree with him. Does biblical Hebrew pronunciation makes it sound like a foreigner with a thick accent, or does it just sound archaic and ancient? Because that's how I would think it would sound, but I could be completely off.
Vocabulary. Of course,
Okay.
one of the big differences between biblical Hebrew and modern Hebrew is in vocabulary.
Yeah.
Most of the core vocabulary of biblical Hebrew is still used in modern Hebrew. House, bais, bait, bread, lechem, lechem, to go, halach, halach, to say, omar, amar, good, tov, tov, large, gadol, gadol.
I wonder if the D was a th, interdental.
But some biblical Hebrew words are not used in modern Hebrew. Pima. This word, which appears only in Job chapter 15 verse 27, is kind of unclear, but seems to mean something like bulges of fat. This isn't used in modern Hebrew.
They should start using them. I have a couple of people that would be described like that perfectly.
Brima. This word only appears in Job chapter 26 verse 7 and seems to mean nothingness, literally without what or without anything. This
Okay.
isn't used in modern Hebrew. About 1,500 of the 8,000 or so Hebrew words found in the Bible only appear once.
That is a very interesting data. 1,500 only appear once. There are okay.
And most of those were left out of modern Hebrew because they were never common to begin with.
It makes sense. I mean, if they only use one in 8,000 words, you only use it one, and it's not even that useful anymore.
Sometimes we're not even sure what they mean. Like in Isaiah chapter 14 verse 4, there's the word mazheva, which was traditionally translated as golden city, referring to Babylon, because it appears to have the Aramaic root meaning gold, dalit he bet. But in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the word is written
Like
marheva,
arrogance.
with the letter resh, not dalit. They look similar and can be easily mistaken with each other. In this form, the word seems
I did read the Dead Sea Scrolls, by the way.
to have the root resh he bet, which can mean arrogance or fury. So in some Bible versions, it's translated as fury.
I mean, for Babylon.
And I saw it in one translation as the haughty one, haughty meaning
Arrogant,
arrogant. Since this word requires debate and interpretation,
Well, hold on a minute. The entire Bible requires debate and interpretation. I mean, they still do it. They still do it. Like the highly religious one, maybe not the laic or the secular Israeli, but Jews. But I mean, that's all they do. That's all they do. It's like every word, a million interpretation and 15,000 layers of this and that. But in this case, maybe it means this, no, it means that. That's how it is, guys. I mean, I do remember that class. It was
probably
great.
wouldn't
but
have been useful in modern Hebrew. In my personal experience studying biblical Hebrew, this is one of the hardest and most frustrating
Of
things.
course.
Seeing words like this that you'll probably never see again, but that you have to dedicate lots of your time to figuring out because their meaning is unclear. But there's one such word that appears in the Bible just once, but is frequently used in modern Hebrew. The word for cheese, gvino. In modern Hebrew, gvina. There are many words from biblical Hebrew that are used in modern Hebrew but have taken on new meanings, new expanded meanings that contain the essence of the original meaning. In the Bible, the personal pronoun for I is anochi, or ani. Modern Hebrew uses ani for I, but anochi has been repurposed as an adjective meaning selfish.
interesting, with the Latin word ego, we actually do that too, because egoista in Italian means selfish, but we don't use it for the personal pronoun. We just say io. Analogous.
In biblical Hebrew, the verb nohag meant to lead or to drive forward, as in leading people, animals, or a chariot. But in modern Hebrew, nahag means to drive an automobile.
Makes
And you
sense.
might have noticed a difference in the G or gimel sound at the end. Nohag, nahag. In biblical Hebrew, the letter gimel is another letter that has two allophones, g or r, a fricativized version of g.
The fricativized version actually sounds a bit like Greek to me. Like they read it. Like glosses. Glosses.
But in modern Hebrew, gimel is always pronounced g.
Okay.
Rechev. In the Bible, this refers to a chariot fleet, but in modern Hebrew, rechev is the word for vehicle. For automobiles specifically, there's also the word mechonit, but people often say rechev instead.
I mean, it's the same in English, really. When's the last time you said automobile? Same in Italian, right? Automobile. Sure, but I mean, we Italians do say sometimes l'auto. so just the auto part, but most people just call it machina.
Ahuz. In biblical Hebrew, this meant a portion, like one piece of a larger whole. In modern Hebrew, ahuz specifically means percent,
Makes
a
sense.
specific portion of 1/100th. Originally, it was part of a phrase, ahuz lemea, a portion of 100, but then people just started saying ahuz. One well-known example is the word chashmal, which is the modern Hebrew word for electricity.
This interests me, the etymology of it, because I don't know it. Let's see how they made it.
The word hashmal appears in the Bible 3 times, all in the visions of Ezekiel, and referred to a brilliant glowing substance. English Bibles typically translate it as amber or glowing metal. In the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Bible from the 3rd century BCE, hashmal is translated as electron, which could refer to either amber or electrum, an alloy of silver and gold. If you rub amber, it creates static electricity
Beautiful coins, by the way.
that attracts light objects. In the 17th century, the Latin word electricus was coined from the Greek word and meant like amber to describe this phenomenon. The English words electric and electricity came from the Latin word electricus, which came from the Greek word electron. In modern Hebrew, the biblical Hebrew equivalent of electron, hashmal, was chosen to mean electricity because of amber's static charge and also because of the image of brilliant light in Ezekiel's visions.
This is incredible. Okay, this was my favorite part of this entire thing. Fantastic video, I have to say. This is really good. Medieval Arabic borrowings. Yeah, they did have quite a few of those, didn't they? Like with like logics and stuff like that. Coinage, new words. Yeah, clearly takes. Then the verbs. All right, so I would say up to now, very, very interesting video. I want to see a little more on this Arabic section, and then I'm going to wrap it up so that if you want to watch the rest, I'm sure he put a lot of work in it. In fact, you know what? Man, 65,000 views for him. He usually gets a lot more views. So this must have been devastating for him. Oh, goodness gracious. All he does is members only? Okay, I didn't know that. He stopped doing public videos, basically. The last one was 7 months ago, but 40,000 views. Okay, so he was hit, just like me, just like a lot of other creators. See, a year ago, he was averaging 100,000, and in fact, here, 400,000. 500,000, that is damn algorithm. Okay, then I'll stop here. Go watch it. Let's give him a like, and please give him the view, because I'm sure he put a lot of work into this. So I think excellent job. Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much.